All right, Ole Miss a 35-27 winner over Tulsa. We have some stuff to talk about tonight. It wasn't the Georgia Tech game of everybody smiling and rainbows and all of that. There were some struggles. I'm joined by Bill Flowers and Tom Vanderford, and we're going to work through this game. Now, before we get started, I just want to say this. This Tulsa game was always going to be a trap game because they've talked about Kentucky since February. So it's impossible for these players not to hear that Kentucky talk knowing that's right around the corner. That said, there's not really an excuse for the sloppiness. I told you about the operational problems going in, and there's still a little bit of a question with the play calling. Isn't that right, Bill?
Yeah, you heard me beat a dead horse the first game. I think anybody knows if they listen to it that I like the middle of the field, and it's like they have
All right.
or something. It's like they're to it. I'm not sure what's going on, but I think to me that's the thing that's probably hurting them the most.
Yeah, and you saw this Tulsa game where they just decided they were going to send 7, 8 players every play, force Jackson Dart to win the game. Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, they just played it safe, played it vanilla, and continued with the running game. And there is a hole in the middle of the field that this offense has had in the first couple of games, really. Now, Tom, you said you had 8 heart attacks today.
Yes,
Tell me what you think about the game.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad we won. I do agree with Bill. We could exploit the middle of the field better. We've got a guy that's got a shotgun for an arm. We've got good receivers, and I don't think we throw those dig routes as much as we should. But the thing that got me today is I saw a lot of things that they need to clean up before Kentucky. For me, the run defense needed to be cleaned up a little bit. Of course, they're pretty much one dimensional after their passing quarterback got hurt. But another thing that I didn't like, and it was because Tulsa was bringing the house, was that our pass protection wasn't what I had hoped it would be for a team the caliber of Tulsa.
Yeah, I think that a little bit of that pass protection. It's because most of what they're doing is RPOs and they're run blocking. So once you get past them, they're leaning that way. But the fact that Bill says about them not being afraid of the middle of the field, the quarterback has to use that part of the field.
If you want to have pass protection, you're going to drop back and throw in the middle of the field. It's going to keep your linebackers from blitzing. That's the best pass protection is keep everybody from, they bring everybody back. Your quarterback, you're forcing your quarterback to throw low percentage passes, which is far outside go routes. I mean, to me, that's what's going to allow you to maximize your run game is by being able to just make 8 to 10 yard in the middle throws that just allow you to sustain lives, to keep the defense honest, and to me, it's don't understand it. I mean, I was texting you, Steven. It was in the beginning of the third quarter when I think we ended up having to kick a field goal. Maybe we ended up on third down. There's literally no within 15-yard radius, 0 defenders in the middle of the field, and we just run and throw a ball to the sideline. Like, I don't get it.
Hey, Bill, your internet connection is not very good. for the time being. If you want to try and find some place, if you want to try and, it just got real jumpy there for a second. If you want to look at it, and we can just, if you want to drive and talk, we can. We'll see what's going on there.
Let me do that. I'm sorry. I must be in a bad area. I'm gonna we've got food coming our way. I'm sorry. I hate that.
No. Well, it's okay. You're fine. You're fine right now. Actually.
Yeah. Oh well. So it's better now.
Yeah, it's better now. Outside for whatever reason, it was real crazy. Anyway, Glenn Breland in the chat says the wide receivers are trash. The OC is bad also. This team is winning nothing, all capital letters. And I don't think you should take anything away from this game for the rest of the season, just like you couldn't take away anything whenever they trashed Georgia Tech when they were going to win the national championship. Try not to overreact to anything that's going on. This game was always going to be a trap. I spent a whole week talking about how this game could get close and get uncomfortable. And it did. And Ole Miss got the win, and they get to go and practice like Tulsa beat them to get ready for Kentucky. And it's almost a revenge thing. They will do a better job. And I was talking to Tom earlier. I think the team needed something like that. Don't you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good thing before the Kentucky game that we got this out of our system. I think it's wonderful that we won in spite of not scoring in the second half. But yeah, I think they needed to get this out of their system because maybe they were, reading all those press clippings after the Georgia Tech win. That happens sometimes. We're only human. And maybe they needed to be brought back down to earth. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Tulsa's a fine football club.
Yeah, they're good.
I think they're very good.
I will say this. At the beginning of the season, the first game, I think you can look at our schemes, and you can kind of look at, okay, I predict if we're going to do this defense and this offense, you can kind of tell what's going to happen. Well, what we've said is that if we have a team that's going to run down your throat, I'm a little concerned with that. If today, when they ran down our throat, they did a pretty good job. When they ran to the side, our speed was able to really kind of keep that from happening. The SEC, like Arkansas, is going to pound down your throat.
Yeah.
The thing that baffles me is that you're not going to take what the defense gives you in the middle of the field, and then on defense, you're not going to blitz every single play. If you do not blitz every single play, our defense is not built to sit there and allow a quarterback with 5 to 6 seconds to throw the ball. Every time that our defense plays well is when we put pressure on the quarterback. And if we don't do that every play, that's the only way that we're going to be able to sustain these SEC caliber offenses that are going to take what your defense is giving you, which is a 3-man front, and you better bring that pressure. So that's the kind of thing that kind of makes me scratch my head, is that it's not like you're going to throw it in the middle of the field. You don't want to show Kentucky that you're going to blitz all the time. I mean, that's the one thing that concerns me, is I think our stripes are kind of, are there. Now it's going to be, okay, well, this is who we are. Are they going to adapt? Are they going to do those things? And you didn't score any points in the second half, and you never took advantage of the middle of the field. You didn't just continue to bring pressure. That's the thing that kind of makes me concerned about playing Kentucky next week.
Yeah. Well, can I put something in real quick?
Go ahead, Tom.
At the half, Northern Illinois and Kentucky are tied 14 apiece.
Yeah, they're going
So
through a little bit of the
maybe they
same
were
thing we
looking
are.
forward to us.
Yeah, yeah, they're going through the same thing that we're
Yeah.
going through. Let's check the other scores
Well,
that are
I
going
can
on.
tell you, if you do not,
Go ahead.
but they will. Kentucky is too good of a team
Mhm.
to where, they're going to run the ball down your throat, and they've got a great quarterback. And so you're going to have to. You can't. They're not a good enough defense to say, okay, you know what, we're balanced enough. We're not like this, established Alabama defense where we can say, you know what, you're probably not going to run on us, and you're probably not going to pass on us. We're that good. We're more of a speed team that you better cover the holes with just kamikaze guys and say, listen, if you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me this way. We're not good enough to play both ends of the run and the pass. So, I think we saw that today, to where you're going to have to choose one or the other. And last year when you saw us at our best, it was when we pinned our ear back and just said, listen, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us through our blitzing and just kamikaze defense.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that defensively on struggles, because we saw last year whenever a player was out, how it can completely shape the way the defense looked when Jake Springer went out early in the early part of the season last year. Well, this game there was no J.J. Pegues, there was no Kari Coleman, and Kari Coleman is important to get a pass rush, and we had a little bit of an issue rushing the passer. We didn't have that elite pass rusher, even when we went to a 4-down look. We just couldn't quite finish the job. There was a couple times when Jared Ivey was there. There was a couple times with Sarah Johnson, and they just couldn't close the deal with it. And because of that, the play got kept alive, and it may be a little bit more comfortable than people want. But like I said before, let's just remember the game-winning touchdown was scored in the second quarter.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, let's go into the chat, talk about that real quick. NJG Man says, our team learned a lot and still got the win. That should be an interesting week of practice. Absolutely. Luke Shaw says, we just made half the plays we almost made. We'd have won by 3 scores. That is also correct. And Joey Freeman says, I have no more fingernails. And I believe that. It looks like Bill's a little bit frozen up. He's going down the highways of northern Mississippi. He's probably somewhere on 6 at the moment. So hopefully Bill will come back in just a little bit. So, Tom, this was a game. Like I said, I talked about this game all week about how it could get uncomfortable. And this was like a trap that honestly our own media made. Starting in February, they said, hey, we got to get ready for Kentucky, or we won't know anything about this team until after Kentucky. And the weekend before Kentucky, they were sloppy, operationally insecure, horrible game from the center. It was absolutely atrocious. Most of our second half problems result from that center quarterback exchange. Bill talked about them using the middle of the field incorrectly. These are things that can be schematically cleaned up, though. I don't see anything that is just a fatal flaw in this team. I see something that it can be worked on. Don't you agree, Tom?
Oh, I completely agree. I think the middle's there if they want to work on it. I don't know if they're afraid that Jackson might throw into double or triple coverage, but those dig routes and so on and so forth, they're open, and we've hit on some of those. So, I think Malik Heath is a really good receiver. I think Mingo's a good receiver. Watkins did not have a good day. I don't think his concentration was all there today. He had, a ball that he probably should have caught, a deep ball, and muffed a couple of punts. So I don't know why we didn't see a little bit more maybe of J.J. Henry in the slot or someone else in the slot. Maybe, just maybe, they're saving some stuff, and they've been vanilla for these first 4 games. That's all I can hope for on offense. But it does surprise me because Dart's got a really good arm, and he can hit those routes. So I don't understand why we aren't doing more of that. But hey, we got Bill back.
Yeah, Bill is back on the show. You hear us, Bill?
Yes, sir.
All right. Real quick before we get started, Mike Big says, can we challenge the targeting call on Reese with the SEC this week? I do not think so. Reese did not launch, and he led with his shoulder. I think this targeting rule is kind of final. I don't know of any way you can appeal it. Joey Freeman says Kentucky is tied 14-14 at the halftime with Northern Illinois. They apparently looked all forward to the Ole Miss game all offseason the same way that Ole Miss looked the other way. And it's just one of those things. Like, Bill's on his way back to Alabama, so everybody should be thankful that you don't have to drive back to Alabama after witnessing that second half. Right, Bill?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was very much of a head scratch. But overlooking your opponent, I completely understand that. But when you continually neglect throwing the middle of the field and making things easy for your quarterback, and just deciding I'm not going to give high percentage passing plays, and you are continuing to say our pass game is what we're concerned with, then to me that's not overlook your opponent. That's kind of the old saying, the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So, I think that's my big concern. It's not us overlooking Kentucky. Our concern Kentucky gives us and exploiting it. That's my big concern.
Yeah, and either Jalen Robinson or Jordan Watkins or even J.J. Henry and Michael Trigg, those are guys that over the last 2 years would have made their living over the middle of the field on this team. And for whatever reason, everything is outside the hashes to start this season. Now, next week it could change. It could look completely different. I think there is a little bit of Kiffin trying to get away with some stuff. And I mean, we'll see what it is, but I think Kiffin is also a little bit afraid of Jackson Dart, don't you think, Tom?
Yeah, we've got to remember Jackson's 19 years old. He's got a lot of talent, but he's only started a few games in college, and he's probably wanting to bring him along and trying to let him manage the game. He didn't have any picks today, which was good, but maybe he's just afraid that if he does throw it over the middle, he might get excited and throw it into double or triple coverage. But I think in the SEC, of course, Bill knows more than that about me. He was a receiver in the SEC. But I think when it comes to the SEC time, we're going to have to use the middle of the field. We're going to have to. We're not going to have a choice.
Yes. What do you think, Bill?
Well, they didn't do it last year.
Yeah.
They didn't do it last year. They didn't attack the middle of the field. And, I mean, I think we threw one or maybe two hitches to the inside receiver today, and they were all completed. And they was like, oh, my gosh, you had an 8-yard completion. Good job. Oh, it was only a 15 yards from you rather than a 35-yard 5-yard hitch to the opposite side of the field, the outside. So if you're wanting to calm a receiver down, if you're wanting to make things easy, you're going to throw high percentage throws. I don't care how good you are. Throwing a 30-yard down the field vertical throw on the outside shoulder is not a high completed pass. So if you're wanting to calm your quarterback down, that's kind of crazy. It's like to your point, Tom, it's either the either the receiver gets it or the sideline gets it, one or the other. But that's not what you want to do. I mean, you want to create rhythm. You want to create, like I told you, like my whole analogy last time was Lamar Jackson. His balls are down the field, or in the middle of the field. You know, I just don't understand it. And you've got great talent. Just run some digs, run some posts from the inside. Take some 15-yard just in the middle of the field curls.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it, and that's what, like, I think this team has so much talent, but if you do not take what the defense gives you, you're not going to be able to execute in the SEC. I mean, in reality, all you're doing is playing with two receivers because nothing gets really. And if you're going to run, and if they're going to run in the middle, and if they do throw a ball in the middle, it's a 35-yard drag route that, just take what the defense gives you. Don't try to have home run balls or doubles and triples. Just take singles here and there.
Yeah, and work the screen game. I have not seen the screen game very much in the first 4 games.
Yeah, I think the screen game. I think our run game's done is going so well, but you're correct. I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't seen those quick little passes, but maybe that's because they just feel like maybe our guys aren't. They're not the big massive guys like we've had in the past. But to your point, I haven't seen that. But our run game looks fantastic, but I think the big concern that I've got is again, beating that dead horse, middle of the field, and maybe they just don't want to hit the middle of the field because they feel like if they don't, if they're trying to hit balls in the middle of the field, maybe they're afraid that the linebackers are going to stay in the middle of the field. I'm not sure about that, and you would think that the screen games would help.
Yeah, and with them compressing so much in the middle of the field to stop the run game, because they are flowing, like sprinting at run fit to try and make some sort of an explosive play. It feels like some sort of quick game in the passing route. Use the middle of the field, a quick RPO behind the linebackers would be insanely effective. Just like a quick slot slant would be a perfect call against what defenses are trying to do, because they have to sell out to stop this run game. They know that.
Well, here's what every defense is going to do. You watch. That is worth its salt. They are going to stack the box and say, you know what, Jackson Dart, I would rather you beat me than your running backs, because your running backs are horses, and we know that you guys are better. You're a better running team than you are a passing team. So if that's the case, and if you're not going to take the middle of the field, and all you're going to do is throw low percentage home run balls, I will gladly stack the box, press you up, bring the house, and make your life uncomfortable. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to sit back and just play a 3-man front and just say, hey, we're going to play cloud defenses. They're not. If you look at Auburn, if every team that plays Auburn is going to stack the box and say, hey, you know what? We don't feel like you guys can throw the ball against us. We know you can run the ball, but if you're going to, we're going to play against your strength. And so that's what's going to happen. And I think it could be either a really, 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 really rude awakening if you put 8 men in the box and say, you know what, this is what's going to happen. Because if you don't take what the defense gives you, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, let's hear from Underdog Fantasy. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football this season. So, This is what you need to do. Go to the Underdog website, create an account, and look at the different pick'em choices for Ole Miss each week. You can look at Jackson Dart, and you might say, hey, I think he's going to have over 150 yards. That'd be a higher number. Or you can pick a lower number. In my pick'em for this weekend, I picked Drake May with a higher passing yards than 254.5 yards against Notre Dame. I also liked Notre Dame starter Drew Pine to throw lower than 217.5. I like Louisville quarterback Malik Cunningham to go over 95.5 rushing yards against USF. This incredibly easy, and it's available in over 30 states. So just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team, not just Ole Miss, and decide if they'll finish with a higher or lower number. It's one of the easiest fantasies to play, and you can win cold hard cash in a single game. So sign up with promo code LOCKEDON, one word, and Underdog will double your first deposit of up to $100. Deposit up to $100, get up to $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On, and get college football pick'em action today. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications when we put a new video up, and of course, upvote the video itself. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about stars of the game, and believe it or not, there were, I think, stars of the game. You might have ill feelings going through and thinking about like a bad taste in your mouth going into it, but I think Trey Washington, save for the interception where he didn't locate the football, had a pretty good game today. And he needs to have a good game because the first half against Kentucky, he will probably be the starting dude on the field against Kentucky. Bill, what's the star of the game for you, bud?
I would obviously number 4, our running back, just Juxon. I mean, he's a stud. He had a fantastic game, and so I think he's offensively he's the easy choice. But I will say, besides him, I'm gonna say Jackson Dart, and I'm gonna say Jackson Dart from the standpoint of running the ball, of being able to I was happy to see he's a good asset to that. So offensively, I'm going to say Jackson Dart. Besides obviously number 4, Junkston, who's just a beast. That was my player of the game offensively. Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
Well, I mean, I hate to say the same thing, but yeah, it was 4 and 2 for me also. Okay. I thought Malik Heath played pretty good, but I think what Jackson Dart did today with his legs, he rushed for 113 yards.
Yeah.
I think that we needed that. I'm not sure we would have won without that added dimension because they were crashing hard on our running backs.
Michael, real quick, Michael Speck says, miserable day. Students left at halftime, and I don't blame it. It was hotter than hell. It wasn't just the students. If you looked along the sides, half the people left out of the stadium. There was probably 20,000 people in the fourth quarter at that game.
You remember when we used to put visitors in the south and the north end zone? I don't know why we don't go back to that. I mean, it would be miserable for the visiting fans.
Oh, they figured out a way to make money in the south end zone. They're not going to move the students back there. The students always get the least desirable seats. I mean, say whatever you want to, but that's the trade-off you get for either free or $5 tickets. Because in the south zone, they have all the clubs and all that going on right now. They're never going back to the south zone.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this: the end zone where the students are.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter and I were walking around the stadium, and we ended up having to go into that area, which I guess that's the north end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been over there? Have you seen the seats?
I have not seen the updated. It's been probably 2019 was the last time I was in the stadium.
They're aluminum.
Yeah.
Do you know how hot 90-degree weather is, sitting in aluminum stands. Holy crap!
Bill,
I bet you it is so hot, like 120 degrees in those stands, in those aluminum seats.
Oh, you can
Bill,
see it today. They had fans. They were, the guys were taking their shirts off. It was miserable.
In 2004, when you played, Bill, I was in the end zone shooting practice. So on those 90, 100-degree days in August, I was sitting up there. I know how hot those seats can get.
I mean, I just didn't realize, like, aluminum seats, like, most of the stands are concrete.
Yeah.
But over there, so, I mean, I didn't realize how hot that area is.
Ross Bjork needs to be. He needs to be blamed for the design of that south end zone. They completely screwed that up. Yeah, they completely screwed that up.
Well, I mean, I think it's got a good looking design, but it obviously it's cheaper to do aluminum than full concrete. But that's also where the drunk college kids are, and hey, it's better them than me sitting in a 120 degree Coke can. So I'm glad they're having to deal with it. They should send the visitors over there. That would be that would be fun.
The good news is this should be the last game where it's this hot.
Yeah, I mean it was 90 degrees kickoff.
Yeah.
But there was probably, I would say, from the stands point, I would say if that stadium holds 62,000, there was probably, I mean, maybe 30,000 in the stadium. So it was not packed, but there was a lot of open seats today, and you heard Lane Kiffin really talk about how he's disappointed with the Ole Miss atmosphere. He said, "Listen, we should have a better atmosphere. We should have more people in the stands. We should have more people stay throughout the games." I think those are things that I think it's part of the growth of what he hopes Ole Miss can become. And I think next week, if we beat Kentucky, there's going to be more of an expectation of what he wants to see from the fans. Wants to see more people in the stands. But definitely, having playing a team like Tulsa. You're about to have a stretch of a couple different games coming up, but I think that he did, it was disappointing to me. I was shocked that there wasn't more fans in the stands than there was today in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Now, this is our Ole Miss's third home game to start the season. It's like 3 out of 4 at home, and next week is potentially game day. And we're going to talk about Kentucky here in just a second. And so everybody has been thinking about that game. It was just the weirdest thing. Even me, who is the most optimistic, like, keep it real person that is out here, and even I was drifting towards Kentucky. I had to re-record my podcast on Thursday because I talked too much about Kentucky. And if I'm doing that, they were absolutely doing that. And they were sloppy. The operation was absolutely horrible. And, I mean, it was good that they got out of this win because in 2015, they did not get out of this game with a win. They went up to Memphis and lost the game. And lost it pretty handily. So this is a game that in the past Ole Miss has lost, no matter how good they were. So props to them for winning the game. Definitely worked to clean up some stuff, and especially snapping the ball, because the one thing that I see is the whole second half could be attributed almost entirely to the center because the operation was slowed down, the timing was thrown off. Jackson Dart always had to take his eyes off from downfield to try and catch the ball because it was down at his ankle. It was a horrible day snapping the football. And if they don't get that fixed, that's the one fatal flaw. If they don't get that fixed, an SEC team will beat them. That will cost them an SEC game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know you and I were talking about it before Bill came on, but the Eli Acker, when they moved him over to center, it seemed like every snap of his was low and slow, and that was definitely disruptive. I mean, it disrupts the running game and the passing game.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't become a mental thing to where Caleb is stuck in the back of his head and this becomes like a Steve Sachs-like problem, Chuck Knobloch, to where snapping becomes an issue for him or Eli Acker. I hope they can get this cleaned up without becoming a mental thing. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah.
I think having a center and them having the, what do you call it in the baseball world, the yips, where you just you can't get it out of your head. I know now we've had some changes at the center, correct? We're having some changes, and I think the biggest thing for them is, like you said, have it, clear your head, don't think about it. Just work at it next week, and make sure that you clean that up. It's not. If you're going to have a game where you're going to have it, you would definitely love it to be the Tulsa game and not Kentucky, and make sure that you've cleaned it up. I think that's the big. Takeaway from today is what can they fix? Obviously, like you said, the offensive line has to. With our center exchange, you've got to. I mean, there were some snaps that were. I mean, it's like he rolled it back there. Which I just don't see how you do. But like you said, I don't know if it's mental or if there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there's been like the hiccup. Caleb Warren snapped the ball off his leg and just it dropped down there, and we lost the ball once. And Quinshon Judkins was able to get it in the Northern Illinois game. But to me, that is the most important takeaway. When everybody looks at this game against Tulsa and they're like, trying to do transitive stuff to think about how we're going to do about Kentucky, that is the one thing that's actually going to keep me up, because we have to get that fixed.
Yeah, I am all for, I want to make it very clear. I feel like we've got great talent, but there's some things that like what did we do today that beat ourselves? Obviously, one was the quarterback exchange with the center. That's a big one, and that one needs to get fixed. I felt like we missed a lot of tackles today. Those are things that we're better than. I think we had lots of missed tackles, but the players are talented enough to correct that. And I think those were the two things offensively. From the player standpoint. The center exchange, getting that ball, to Jackson Dart, and then the defensively, the missed tackles. Those are all things that can be worked on. Those are all things that you can get better on. The one thing that you can't fix, that the players don't have any control over, is the play calls of putting them in the right position to succeed. And and that will be really interesting to see, how they adjust next week.
Yeah, one thing that was really nice, and before I take our next break, I do want to talk about this. I thought Tulsa's script in the first two drives that they had Davis Brim and all that was almost flawless. They did a fantastic job. And other than that, Tulsa scored 13 points today. But that first part, whenever they kind of got it, that showed in-game adjustments by Chris Partridge and his defense. And while the defense might have not played as well as we hoped, that shows some improvement can be made, because they did score 13 points in the second half, and the winning touchdown was the one that made it 28-14. That was the winning touchdown in this game. So should be interesting. When we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats coming to Oxford right after this. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. It is free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Do me a favor to do that. Hit the bell for notifications when we upload another one. And, of course, upvote the video itself and comment below. All of those, we'd appreciate that very much. Monday's show, we're going to do 3 takeaways like we do every week. And we will continue to talk about this Ole Miss Tulsa game and get ready for Kentucky. Speaking of getting ready for Kentucky, this is a big game. This is the one that everybody's pointed to. It's like, you won't know anything about this Ole Miss team until after that game. So they put all of this pressure on there. Ole Miss is going to have to come out and establish themselves. At least it's a home game. Bill, what are you looking for in this Ole Miss Kentucky game, which might be a indicator that this thing could go in the right direction?
I'm going to beat that dead horse. I want the ball in the middle of the field. I want high completed passes. I want Jackson Dart to feel comfortable. I want him to take a 3-step drop and hit the middle of the field and be like, oh my gosh, we're moving the ball down the field. We're high completed passes. We know you can run the ball. We know we have a high-powered octane running offense. We do. But I also want to be able to know that I will take what the defense gives us and I will move the ball, and I don't have to look like this sexy Barbie, strolling down in a bikini. Like, okay, listen, I want just give me nice, easy balls in the middle of the field. I don't have to be, it doesn't have to look sexy. Just move the ball down the field. That's what I want to see. That's the only concern I have on offense is just short, good, quick, clean, get the ball out of your hands. That's what's going to win or lose this game against Kentucky. If you do not take what the defense gives you, it can get out of control. It will get away from us. That's what I'm looking for. Is good, nice, clean, easy, high completed passes, using our athleticism and just controlling the ball.
Yeah, I think the first game, this could be the first game that like Jalen Robinson breaks out a little bit, Michael Trigg in the middle of the field. I think this could happen. Now, Tom, Keydron Smith and Jones, I can't remember his first, Jacquez Jones, plays at Kentucky. He knows a little bit about the Lane Kiffin offensive system. How much of an advantage do you think that'll be for Kentucky?
I think it'll be a pretty big advantage. I mean, Keydron and Momo both played
Jacquez
against
Jones. Sorry,
Momo
went to Louisville.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Jacquez Jones. Yeah, but both of them, Jacquez I only played for Lane for 1 year, but they still know our offense. They know our tendencies, and it's going to help them. The thing that I'm most concerned with is Rodriguez is coming back. That'll be his first game. He'll be all amped up and juiced up. And after I saw what Tulsa's running backs did to our defense today, that concerns me.
Yeah, I am anticipating the defense looking closer to the way it did against Georgia Tech than the way it did today. I think today was just a mental cluster, basically, from our defense. It was basically like just error. They just couldn't get out of their own way. There were so many plays that were so close to being made, and I think they will make those in the future. Like I said, Tulsa's a good team. They are. You may not want them to be, but that doesn't change the fact that they are.
But offensively, what Tulsa does versus Georgia Tech is very different, correct?
Yes. Yeah, Tulsa does very similar thing that Ole Miss does both offensively and defensively that we do.
Yes. And Kentucky is going to be more built like Tulsa than Georgia Tech. Would you say that's a fair statement or?
No, I think Stoops and his defense, it's going to look more like what a good version of an LSU defense would look like.
Sorry, I mean offensively.
Yeah. They're going to run downhill. You're going to see Chris Rodriguez. They're going to play action pass Will Levis, And they're going to try and get playmakers the ball.
Right. And they're going to spread you out, and they can throw the ball. That's the thing that's a little concerning to me is I didn't get to see all that much of the Georgia Tech game, but Georgia Tech runs the ball more so than they throw. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what I'm concerned about is that when you have the teams that are going to on you, it forces us to go to our, we just have this, we're going to be a 3-man front, and we better bring the house as much as you possibly can. You saw today. I did not feel like we were as aggressive as we needed to be in the beginning. I thought we ended up doing that, adjusting in the end, and that's why we didn't make a lot of plays. But that's the thing that a little concerns me about is, if you have a team that's going to run down your throat, like today, they spread.
Okay. Bill must be driving through a bad patch again. He's over in northeastern Mississippi, so I mean that's pretty much it. Tom, before we get out of here, any final thoughts about Kentucky or about the Tulsa game?
Well, I'm glad Tulsa's behind us. It's in the trash. Let's not worry about that. I hope we clean up some things. And I think the big thing with Kentucky this year, they haven't averaged but about 3 yards a carry. Of course, that's Rodriguez hasn't been there. So maybe they do have some OL issues as far as the run game goes. But we've got to, on defense, we've got to disrupt Will Levis. We've got to disrupt the run game. I agree with Bill. We need to have some more kamikaze stunts, blitzes, whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
I think like Jalen Robinson or Jordan Watkins and Michael Trigg against Kentucky, this needs to be their coming out. Bill is absolutely correct. You have to use the middle of the field.
Right. Well, Jalen hadn't played for a while, so I'm hoping that he'll be healthy for Kentucky. I think he could be. A game changer in the slot. So that would be welcome. I'd like to see Trigg a little bit more, and maybe we've been vanilla these 4 games. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, possibly. Bill, Bill Flowers back in. Kentucky, give me one last thought about either today's game or the Kentucky game moving forward.
I think this is going to be the best barometer for us, like you said. I'm not really concerned much about our team as much as our play calling to be able to make sure that our players are on the right spot, that defensively that we are calling the right plays to make sure that we are, bringing as much pressure as we possibly can. Those are the 2 things that I think that have to be addressed. And I think if we can do that, I think Ole Miss will win the game. I think that we've got a lot of talent. This team has impressed me. But I think that next week with Kentucky, as good of a team they are, this will be a fantastic barometer for us to see, are we for real? Can we run the gauntlet in the SEC and be able to control the ball when we need to control the ball, make our high percentage passes? I think this is going to be a great test for us.
Yeah, and I just say this, Mike Biggs just said Texas A&M just went ahead of Arkansas, and if A&M wins that game, there's a chance. The chance of game day being in Oxford next week goes way up if A&M wins that game. Anyway, for Bill and Tom, thank y'all very much for coming in. Ole Miss, an 8-point winner over the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Hope even the Tulsa fans watching this, y'all played a heck of a game. Kudos to you. That was pretty good. Anyway, For Tom and Bill, I'm Steve, and this has been the Postcast right here on Locked On Ole Miss. Take care.